welcome to this week's edition of Befriend Your Mind. And can you believe we're in February? Where does the time go? That's all I got to say. And you know what February always brings most people's mind to is this whole Valentine theme. And I thought I'm going to put it a little bit on its head and talk about how can we redefine what love means. What does that really mean to be loved? Whether it's self-love, love with your family, love with your friends, or just in the shape of what does that mean in terms of mutual respect and care? Now, I know in February, most of us tend to focus a lot on this kind of love that's related to romantic ideals. If you think about women who are not in relationship and they're all pro women, tend to go for the galantines feeling, while others are feeling more about self love. And then there's that romantic between partners. But if we move beyond all that marketing and hype, I know if you walk to any store, you'll see hearts around and you'll get all these beautiful cards. For me, maybe I'm cynical, but I'm just thinking, why do I need just 1 month in the year to express my love? And what I'm going to invite you to is this conversation about if you move past all the marketing that's around you and you move past all the way love has been shown and how it should be. What does your self love and value for yourself look like? Now, the reason I bring this up is because a couple of days ago, on the platform X, formerly known as Twitter, I had a conversation. Elmo, a character from Sesame Street, sent out a tweet that said, "How is everyone doing?" basically. And the tweets just blew up with one after the other, sharing primarily everyone feeling very exhausted, tired, angry, frustrated, feeling as if they're going only from work to home to sleep and back. That feeling of unhappiness was just streaming through over and over again. And despite all that marketing on mindfulness and mental health and all those conversations, you got to ask yourself, then why is this getting worse? I mean, I ask this quite often. At the same time, as I was reading through this, the energy around me, I met a lot of moms or women in their careers feeling very resentful with their lives. And they're feeling very resentful at the fact that they're just struggling to have a conversation and be heard, or they're struggling to find a balance in their family pressures with their own personal wants and needs. And this kind of conversation, this resentfulness, is also associated a lot with feeling ashamed and silently guilty for feeling this way. And if these women do talk about it, they're constantly defending themselves because the guilt shows up, and this feeling that if I show my weakness, what does that imply? Does that mean I'm not good enough anymore? I think in 2023, with all that information out there, what is the point of providing more information? And I kept reflecting on this, and it goes back to this idea of how are we defining love in our life? Are we defining it based on judging or versus understanding? I'm going to give you an example. I mean, if you look at how you go online and you're scrolling constantly past one after the other post, and you see a lot of positive things or people always smiling in selfies, we're building this image of what it looks like. Most people are just smiling and showing positivity because they probably know that they're going to get more likes by that. And so, very much, it becomes a sort of comparison and a judgment. And then we base our decisions and our way of being on those kinds of judgments. We judge ourselves. Are we living up and measuring up to how people are telling us we should be and ought to be, to be more loving? When I look at clients and I ask them about their self care routine, it's a long list. And it's a long list of which half of it they cannot get through because they end up talking about what oh, I should be doing it, or I must be doing, oh, it's better if I did that. There is this amount of pressure we put on ourselves, and when we can't achieve it, we go into the spiral of constantly judging ourselves. That over time, our true value and what we think is our value gets blurred along the way. So I can talk about self acceptance. I can bring all these peppered words we hear all the time. But I would like to invite you into something a little bit more differently. It's about in the art of understanding, giving yourself that opportunity to understand yourself as is. And what do I mean by that? Sometimes, if you find yourself saying certain things and wondering, why am I saying that? It's a moment for you to stop, and you can go down to a couple of roads. And one that's obvious is judging yourself for why am I saying that and why I shouldn't say that, or asking yourself, it's interesting that I'm saying that, and I wonder where that is coming from. By asking and reflecting and turning it inwardly on how you are speaking and what you're reflecting to others, by doing that, you actually have an opportunity to get to know yourself in underneath the surface of life, of daily mundane things. You see, while we like to think we're very logical beings and we're always trying to be, take a very logical decision, underneath the surface of logic lies our emotions. And when we deny those emotions a space of understanding, that suppression keeps playing into our fears or in our uncertainties or in our assumptions or in our expectations. And it really does influence our way of making decisions in our life and at a certain speed. So if you're anxious or depressed, that's a kind of speed. So if you panic and you feel like you have to make a decision quick, those emotions underneath that are suppressed are still influencing your anxiousness. And then you react and then go, why did I say that afterwards? And what comes to mind often, especially maybe as a woman, is this word sorry. Always apologizing and asking yourself, well, really, why am I apologizing? Do I really mean it? So, getting to understand yourself more is much better than that tall to do list that you have on your self care and your routine. So, this is what I'd like to invite you to for this month, whether it is in any relationship you find yourself in. Give yourself that opportunity to just step back and ask yourself, underneath the layers of judgment, what is going on? I know it takes a lot of courage to look really deep within, but sometimes the way out of something or the way to understand something is to walk through it. I like to think, if you haven't watched the movie, but I like to think of Alice in Wonderland, walking through the trails on a journey and meeting all these moments, but they were also reflections of her feelings and her emotions and her curiosities. And she adopted a curiosity to figure it out, to find out. And to take that approach with yourself, you will take off a lot of pressure and layers that self judgment places on you. And when you do that, you are able to handle certain conversations with much more ease. So that's my invitation for this month. So what's going to be happening this month at Kirtana 168? I'm excited that I'm finally getting my act together, and I'm going to be publishing the first 3 workshops on just being me. And this Just Be Me are like webinars, they're short webinars to invite you on moving from, instead of doing a vision board and doing a Just Be Me board. And I've spoken about it in previous podcasts. I'll put a link below on why it is much more effective to do that, especially if you're feeling a lot of emotions going on, or you're in a very, it's almost like a bit of an identity change. You want to figure yourself out. This is a great opportunity to try that. It's also great if you want to shift in your careers and transitions, and you want to shape your communication to match where you're heading. So it's a little bit more of a deeper internal process. Be sure to subscribe to my newsletter, because that's where I post out when I will be publishing these workshops. This month's guest is from the Netherlands, who's going to share her life as a mom and wife in a multi ethnic relationship. She also touches upon career, and I find her perspective really refreshing. I don't want to let it all out of the bag yet. I want to keep that hint of surprise. So be sure you are following so that you can get notification when we drop this podcast next week. I hope you found this week's reflection insightful and leaving you with a little bit of something to think about, reflect upon as you move towards the month about taking care of yourself in a terms of finding the understanding from within. And if you found it useful, please be sure to share it out with someone. I hope you have a wonderful week. I'm looking forward to sharing next week's episode with you. Until the next one, take care.